Hi folks, Fat Ek here, Alec Anderson, coming to you in association with Viaplay. Viaplay, the Swedish sports channel. Channel 1 on Viaplay tonight will be showing the only match that any true Scot should be watching. Viaplay Channel 1, 1935 hours, Norway against Georgia. If that ends in a draw, Scotland have qualified for next year's Euros before any country other than Germany, who are the hosts and who have just sacked their manager. What is going on? What the hell is going on with Scotland? Absolutely unbelievable. And in the same phraseology anyway, just a slightly different intonation can be applied to Rangers. What's going on? What the hell is going on with Rangers? And in that vein, I would like to talk to you about an incident that happened. Really upset me on Sunday night. I think it's reminding me of, With Neil and I, the famous kind of the Bruce Robinson film of Gone on Holiday by Mistake, all those lines you've heard quoted by arsehole students throughout pubs in Britain. The scene where Marwood, the eye of the title, played by Paul McGann, comes out the gents in the Mother Black Cat pub, and he says to With Neil, don't look, don't say anything, but I've just been called a ponce. Well, I've just been called a happy clapper. I kind of made it happen. I've kind of trying to make it happen. I think over the last 8-9 days, ever since that defeat to Celtic in the first Old Firm game of the season, Ibrox had the boos ringing out all around the stadium, and I've been emotionally confused and really upset about that reaction ever since. As I've said before, I said in the last video I posted here, I think a lot of that is just my way of kind of deflecting the pain I'm feeling, the embarrassment at losing that game. It's just, I can't just do a straightforward, we get beat off Celtic and I'm absolutely raging. I think sometimes we try to find, I did that for the PSV Eindhoven hammering, the 5-1 in Eindhoven. I was just, no, we need to be raging. That's an embarrassment. That's not good enough. Rangers need to step it up. This is what we get for not prioritising Europe this season. But I think because I was expecting us to show a reaction against Celtic the following game, I couldn't just come out with a straightforward, yeah, that was terrible. It was the reaction of other fans. I think that's always a sign that you're just upset at your team's poor performance when you start looking to take it out on other Rangers fans. But there's no denying there's a slight split. Something I've discovered. I don't know if any of you have noticed this. Social media, social media platforms, they're quite binary in their arguments. Quite basic arguments develop. Quite kind of black and white. A lot of polarisation occurs really quickly. Not a lot of nuance. Not a lot of subtlety. There's actually been documentaries on this, very good documentaries, stating how there are agencies out there, not secret government agencies, just like paid agencies who will get your political party into power in your country, and they'll do it for a fee, obviously a massive fee. And what they do is they go into social media and they just start rammies. And if you start a rammy, everybody just goes lowest common denominator. Everybody picks a side and then rushes over to that side. And there's no place for any kind of in-between argument. There's no grey areas and all that. And the problem is life's not like that. So if you're constantly trying to get rid of the grey areas that life does offer up, as we've seen with VAR highlighting how no one football match ever has the same physical interactions between players. Like, you can't have consistency with the handball rule. You can't have consistency with what counts as obstruction and all that, because human beings don't do the same thing all the time. There's always subtle differences, and if you want to eradicate that, if you can't cope with the idea that there's nuance, that there's subtlety out there, there's shades of things rather than everything just being monochrome, then you will get very, very angry, and you will get insulting, and you will end up being the wee guy. I'm assuming he's wee, and I'm assuming he's a guy. I'm just assuming he was young from the intonation, who ended up calling me a happy clapper on Twitter the other night. I've been called it before. It's okay, and I know it's going on. I know why people do it, but I think it's a kind of phenomenon that bears talking about. This split that seems to be occurring. What I had posted, which is kind of a reaction to the people who would call me a happy clapper, who would call me a loser as a Rangers fan. This is other Rangers fans who would say this to you. This is Rangers Twitter I'm talking about, obviously. As I was just posting, I'd seen a lot of the, 2 trophies in 11 years as failure, and I just feel as if that's so reductive. It's so, eh, if you want to talk about 11 years, well, you have to count the trophies, the three lower league titles and the Challenge Cup that we won when we were in the lower leagues. But no, you don't want to, because you don't want to, as a Rangers supporter, you don't want to count anything other than major trophies. It's an embarrassment for us to have lower league trophies on our roll of honour or whatever, a roll of dishonour that would be. And I understand that, that's fine. I don't talk about them as if they're major honours either, but you really need to. It's not been a typical 11 years. We haven't been in the lower leagues for 4 years at any other point in our history, and we're in the lower leagues for 4 of those 11 years, and coming from the financial cataclysm of 2012, which is, I think, is another thing they're not allowed to talk about it. This fella had started off by getting in touch with me. I'd mentioned 2012, the recovery from 2012, and it was, the 2012 comfort blanket. I'm saying, what the fuck's comfortable about it? What's comfortable? We're just talking about cold hard facts here. We're just talking about something that absolutely happened. As I've said before, that the obvious analogy for me is, somebody who's like suffered a stroke. If Rangers is a kind of physical being, it's like 2012 was like a stroke or like losing a limb or something like that. So getting back to full mobility, getting back to your best self might never actually happen, but if it does, it will take a long time. You're going to have to be able to walk before you can run. And people are equating mentioning that. It's becoming this kind of fundamentalist thing. This kind of like, it's becoming like the people who call you a happy clapper or call you a loser for applying any context. And this fella literally said to me, there is no such thing as context. There is no context here. It's all black and white. We're not winning enough trophies. We've only won 2 trophies in 11 years. That's not good enough if you like that, you're losing them. And his argument was, we've got the second biggest budget in the country. So us not winning any trophies domestically last season and only winning 2 since we've come back up for the lower leagues is an absolute disgrace. And you feel like saying, well, Celtic won all the trophies last season with their bigger budget. And talking about clubs' budgets and how it relates to their success, that's context. It just can't exist without context. This idea that there's no context it's not even ludicrous. It's just it's an oxymoron. I mean, you can't have no context. So I find it absolutely ludicrous. But it gets to this point where it's splitting into anybody mentioning that there may be but it might not be as bad as we think, or that, look, let's take pride in the fact that we actually got to a European final, something that, before 2012, it took us, 36 years from Barcelona to get to another European final, while, financially we're pretty healthy. Although we got to win in 2008, the banks were starting to take a little interest in how David Murray's financing of the club was working out. So it's absolutely miraculous that we've got to Seville. I think it's actually pound for pound when you consider what we'd come from and the general relationship of Scotland in 2022 to the top end of European football. Rangers, I mean, Celtic winning European Cup is just straightforwardly the best achievement in Scottish football. That's we don't like it, we hate that, but you can't deny it. Winning European Cup, that's it. They were champions of Europe, you can't argue with that. But proportionately, from where we came from what the layout was in Europe and what Scotland's place in it, coefficients, etc., Rangers getting to Seville is better than even Dundee United reaching the UEFA Cup final in 87, than Aberdeen winning the Cup in 83. Rangers coming from, the 4th tier of one of the kind of relatively middle ranking leagues in UEFA, and within 10 years getting to a final, a European final, a final which that season was not the minor European final. It was the middle European final. Champions League superior, Conference League inferior. We're in the one right in the middle, the one that Seville likes to win, the Sevilla likes to win. The one that Roma had won. Roma won the Conference League the same season, so we're in the final. We're losing a final which is superior to the one that Roma are winning in 2022. And this gives you an idea that how great an achievement that was. And Rangers fans are now telling me that to mention that is a loser attitude. That's your happy clapper. You know, I actually sat here in this wee chair talking to this wee phone just a few days ago, explaining how at the end of the Old Firm game, a week back on Sunday, I didn't clap. That's my reaction. That's what I said. I don't boo the team. I'm not going to. I can't object to anybody doing that. You know, any Rangers fan who feels they should boo their own players. Well, you've paid your money. That's fine. But my reaction when Rangers are poor is I don't clap. If I think the performance has been decent or they've put the requisite effort in, I will applaud them. You know, I'm not going to abuse them at the end of the game. I've never abused a Rangers player or a Rangers employee. It's never happened. There's been a few I felt like doing it at time to time. It was going to a bit hard at times to avoid doing it, but no, I've never ever openly or loudly abused a Rangers player because I'm a Rangers supporter, and it's not just the financial support from which that term derives. It's obviously moral support, spiritual support that you're trying to send to these players. And my criticism is I don't clap when I'm not happy, so I don't really get what that term's all about. But it's splitting that it's becoming this thing where you're any mention, any attempt to ameliorate the depth of the problems, and any attempt to, what I'm actually trying to do is say to Rangers fans, if you get a Celtic fan in your face at your work the next day, just be getting them tilt. This is like the miracle of Scotland. This is the actual most romantic story ongoing, from us going from like bankruptcy, fourth tier football, and within not even within a decade, or just like 9 years, we've won the top title in Scotland, top domestic title, unbeaten, and with setting a British defensive record. That's amazing. Following season, we get to a European final. Only the 10th time a Scottish club has got to a European final in 70 years of European football. It's unbelievable. And yet, apparently, mention this even to a Celtic fan would be you wanting Rangers to lose somehow. You're adding to the problem. You're exacerbating the current malaise at Ibrox. And I find it really... I find it horrible. And this is the kind of thing that happens. This is just what happens when Rangers are in a bad way. When basically we've lost 2 league games out of 4 right at the start of the season. This is what happens, and it's kind of metastasised by social media. It does not help. Social media can be a great thing. It's a really good way of people communicating with each other. A lot of really good work is done via social media. People are made aware of stuff and what have you. And I for example, there's a thing the other day about, I think was it yesterday, that was, you need to forgive me for getting this wrong, it's either Suicide Prevention Day or Suicide Awareness Day, whatever it is. It's a thing in the news the other week, because 762 folk killed themselves in Scotland last year. I mean, we've only got a population of 5 million, 762. And that's on top of us being the pro rata worst place for drug abuse, or best, whatever way you're looking at it. We've got the most drug users pro rata per capita in, I think, Western Europe. That's a record we hold quite often. And you know what the alcohol problems are like in Scotland as well, because you're looking at one of the alcohol problems in Scotland. It's and that's actually patronising of me to say that. Me liking, I don't know, a dozen pints even over a weekend, over 3 days, is really bad for my health, but it's nothing compared to some of the people who are really suffering with alcohol abuse in this country. So I always had a thing, forgive me, it's a really sick, it's a private thing, it's like one of these stupid things you say when you're, amongst friends or whatever, and people who know you're an idiot anyway, don't really take you that seriously. But I've known people who've attempted suicide. No, I think we all do, and I know the devastation that some actually committing suicide reaps. Not at first hand. I've not had anybody close actually taking their own life, but I've relations who've attempted it, and people I know who've attempted it. Yeah, and I get it, and I get some of the stuff I've been through myself and all that. I know how bad life can get. But I'm really lucky in so many ways. But I used to make a stupid joke where, like, if you're going to kill yourself, and this thing, the whole thing is you want to be free. You just need to get away from it. You need to stop the bus. You need to get off. You're going to kill yourself anyway. So why do this? Throwing yourself in front of a train, hanging yourself, pills, whatever it is. Why don't you just, this is where it's really sick, right? This sums up where I'm coming from. Kind of gallows humour stuff, almost literally. I see these kebab places, and I love my kebabs and I love my chips, but I've never had the guts to go for the munchie box. And I've been in these places and I see the menu and see up the boards that, like Mary Hill and all that, I see the stuff that goes into the munchie box and all that. And I'm thinking, aye, if I was going to end myself, I'm like 22 stone as it is just now. Just go and get a munchie box 3 or 4 days in a row, get a cans of Coke, get the box set, DVDs on, what have you. If you don't have the money, I'll go and steal it. Take a chance. What does it matter if you get caught and go to jail? You're going to kill yourself anyway. So just work yourself up to a nice big heart attack by indulging and really enjoy a total blowout, kind of leaving Las Vegas style thing. And of course, that's beyond insulting to anybody who knows anybody who's actually taken their own life, or anybody who's felt that way, because the whole point is what's going on in your head. You can't live with. You just want to die there and then. That's the whole point of it. Living is insufferable, and it just shows how basically my life has been pretty lucky generally. But I get that people need Rangers in the same way that people need, drugs. They need even booze and all that. I'm one of these Scottish people, as I say, that 762 people actually committed suicide. But you look at people who are taking drugs and people who are eating and drinking the way I do. It's a kind of slow suicide. If you're coping with your problems through that stuff, it really is. You're really risking your life. It's beyond just a wee bit of indulgence at the weekend. And Rangers, I know the health problems. I wrote about this for When Saturday Comes once, how bad things are in Scotland. People really need the football. When people are in authority, in particular Scottish Government, for example, are being really pole-faced about Rangers more than Celtic, obviously. The current Scottish Government, they do that whole... I remember Alex Salmond, it was back in 2010, we had that Scottish Cup replay with Celtic where a couple of Rangers players get sent off and 60,000 folk went, oh, what's happening? And then went home. Ali and Super Ali and Lennon are fighting, handbags on the touchline. And it was like, oh, what's happening? And they all went home. And that was it. But next day there was a summit meeting, a State of the Nation address by Alex Salmond and Bute House and all that, just to self-aggrandise and all that. And it was like, this can't go on. Scotland's shame, blah, blah, blah. It's Scotland's saviour at times. It's letting folk just vent, a lot of anger that has nothing to do with actually what's happening on the park. It's letting them get it out of their system and maybe take it home. I know most of us do take it home if things don't go well for our team, but it's a social thing, and it lets you feel part of a community. So I know that when things don't go the way you want them to with your team, for a lot of people, it's just unacceptable because it's a massive part of their life. They need it more than it's probably healthy. They need it like one of these drugs, everybody else, but it's healthier than actual drugs and what have you. So I can't be down on anybody who's unbelievably angry at Rangers not achieving just now. But Jesus, I think the lowest thing that anybody can say, and as I was getting towards saying this the other day on Rangers Twitter, is to eventually say, you sound like a Celtic fan. This is the kind of patter you would get from a Celtic fan. But it's when so many people in Scotland do actually hate us, when so many people wanted us dead as a club, I don't think we need to add to it. Not for 1 second is me saying I think Rangers have actually overachieved a lot of times since 2012. In any way, me saying it's okay for us to win nothing every season. I think we've got to be realistic a lot of times. I think we've got to kind of slow down and kind of analyse things more coolly, only because if we make a wrong move, we might end up going even further backwards. And this thing, even the thing the fella was saying the other day, you end up being kind of abusive and all that. And you're a loser. You should sit at home watching your 55 DVDs. And I'm like, but what's wrong? What's wrong? As a Rangers supporter, what is wrong with sitting and watching a DVD was winning 55? It's this thing of, as I ended up saying, it's almost like we're writing off our own history in the way that like Celtic Football Club wanted to. There is no old firm and using a new team and blah blah blah. And then we've got Rangers fans joining in doing the same, and it's probably boys that are going to their work the next day, and maybe the job itself is absolutely terrible. I know what it's like, and you've got a Celtic fan in your face and all that, but thing just to remember is I remember when we won the treble and under Alec McLeish in, what was that, 2002, 2003, the same season Celtic got to the UEFA Cup final in Seville. You know, and there was even a documentary about it. That was a team that was no, it was an STV documentary. STV did a wee series of documentaries about particular seasons. You know, about 10, 15 years ago or something like that, and they did one about that season, and they did, I can't remember the lassie's name, is a journalist, I don't know if she's like, maybe on Radio Clyde or whatever, obviously a Celtic fan, but avowed, not trying to hide, I'm not putting that on her, she sounded like a Celtic fan, she is, quite open, and why shouldn't she be, about the fact she supports Celtic, but they let her have the last word at the end of this, and she's like, yeah, 2002, 2003, the season that Rangers won the treble, but nobody remembers that, because everybody just remembers Celtic getting to Seville. And it's like, and yet when we got to Seville and went even closer to winning the same trophy, losing only on penalties. Thanks, Aaron Ramsey, by the way, for scoring that penalty the other night against Latvia, just rubbing it in our faces. When we went even closer and won a domestic trophy the same season, the following season, winning the Scottish Cup straight after it was like, you're losers. And I feel as if Rangers fans have kind of maybe heard it too much, and some Rangers fans maybe kind of bought into that and thinking, right, we need to win. That's why there's this thing this season about let's forget Europe and let's make sure we win if we win the treble this season, the same Celtic fans who were telling you last season and 20 years ago about their achievements being the only thing that counts, they're not going to turn around and say, oh, actually, these were great, that was fine. They will just tell you, oh, but you get gubbed in the Champions League. And you can't then alter your ambition to being what Celtic fans are slagging you for, because basically, and you're probably doing the same yourself to them, you never give your opponent in the workplace banter stakes, you never give their team any credit for anything they've achieved. So we need to separate that to find out what's actually best for Rangers. And I hate to say this, particularly in this current climate on Rangers Twitter and what have you, but what are you supporting? I know Rangers, because of the second biggest budget, or just basically having a massive support, so far ahead of every other support in terms of sheer numbers, other than Celtic's. We should be winning stuff every season. We should be. We should be certainly winning stuff most seasons. But at the end of the day, are you just supporting Rangers winning? Or are you supporting Rangers? I know we're getting too used to it, and we don't ever want to get used to, winning nothing. But generally, throughout Rangers history, you don't get many chances to really earn your stripes. Now, we've like no other generation, especially the younger folk, the folk who didn't, weren't born even during the Rangers 9 in a row and what have you, like I was, and didn't get to enjoy all that. Nobody's earned their stripes like the Rangers support since 2012. But I don't think you can vow when it's kind of like, it's kind of ABC, easily identifiable martyrdom. Right, we're in the 4th division and we don't care. Okay, we're in the 3rd tier, now we don't care. We're in the 2nd tier, right, we're just going to stick by our club. And absolutely beyond admirable. Fantastic. And again, that's what I'm saying, it's a fantastic story. That's something to be proud of. It's not just been about trophies. Since 2012. If it was just about trophies, well, you're basically only going to get 3 opportunities to be happy every season, and you're basically going to be unhappy at, what was it, Rangers played 50 odd games last season. I think it was 65 games we played the year we got to the final in Seville, so you're only going to be happy a maximum of 4 of them if you're including a European trophy. So you're wasting your time at 61 games a season because you're going to come away from there not in any way content because we didn't win a trophy. This merciless, it's about trophies. You've got to, it's a bit more than that. You're getting a wee chance here. The Rangers don't win anything. You're just like showing your loyalty. When we don't win anything in the top flight, is actually more of an achievement than we've got a bad time in the bottom. Just being in the bottom tier, the bottom tiers, the lower leagues, even dominating those leagues as we did once. The second season after we hit the bottom. Excuse me, we only drew a couple of games, didn't lose a game. And was that League One? Yeah, even being absolutely brilliant, even winning the trophy at the end of the league in the lower league doesn't compare to losing in the top flight. It's a better proportionate achievement. And I think it's just the proximity of Celtic and having them in our faces and being the ones that are stopping us winning trophies, which understandably is making folk raging. But you need to be able to separate what your enemies are saying about you from what you actually feel about your own club, or else it's going to be, apart from anything else, it's not going to be enjoyable. You need to get some joy out of just watching Rangers, no matter the result. But then I suppose that's me being a happy clapper again. Look, folks, that's enough of me. I'm just ranting and raving. I'm going to go and watch the oldest international fixture in the world, Scotland against England, and then we'll get right back into the serious, heavy stuff tomorrow with a bit more Rangers chat. But thanks for listening to me ranting and raving, and please do not doubt my commitment to Sparkle Motion.